Hello and welcome to Simply Intoxicating. Today is 9th of January 2017. We complete 2 months since demonetization came into effect, yet the impact continues with every day throwing up some new unprecedented challenge. The entire event of demonetization has split the think tanks into two camps. One is the pro and the other is the against demonetization. Some call it as a despotic decision, some call it as a much needed disruptive step. Yet, two common factors bind them, that is the uncertainty and lot of speculation in their analysis. The Aam Aadmi of India is not concerned to understand the hair-splitting analysis of demonetization, but they want answers to two basic questions. When is their inconvenience and pains going to end? And second, when are they going to receive the benefits which they have been assured of? Let's try to understand from our expert panel, when are we going to move beyond this state of uncertainty? Today we have Mr. Arun Kumar. He is a retired professor from JNU and a well-known economist. Then we have Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwal. He is the national spokesperson of BJP on economic affairs. Mr. Agarwal, let's start with you. It's been 2 months since demonetization came into effect, and RBI is yet to come out with its official statistics on the amount of actually deposited in the banks. But the estimations are coming that almost 90%, maybe more than 90% will enter the banks, have already entered the banking system, and maybe only 75,000 crore will stay out of the system. Do you think, because people are saying it's an embarrassment for the government and it didn't turn out to be the way it was expected, but do you think this is a failure of demonetization, or should we look at it from a different perspective where this unaccounted and unrecorded cash entering the banking system, and now the investigative agencies like Income Tax Department, they have now, it's up to them to go after the culprits?
No, it can never be an embarrassment to the government. The whole system, we know, it is a proof that the system had so much deep penetration of corrupt people in the whole economy that it is more likely than it is more desirable that this should have been taken, these steps should have been taken by the government. It is much of a proof like that.
Yes.
So therefore, I think this is an important aspect. And another issue is that by simply depositing in the bank, that doesn't change the color of the currency. Already now there is a
so it does not cleanse them of their blackness.
The anonymity of the currency, which was not clear earlier, now from the banking channel, there will be an audit trail. It can be traced. The owner can be identified. His source of income can be identified. There is a lot of information assimilation at the government level, at the ministry level, at the revenue department level, which can be used to ultimately curb the corruption or black money in the system. There is no doubt there was huge amount of black money in the system that is now in the open, where a government can take action against the culprit.
Sir, I mean, we know you're a critic of demonetization, and it's very clear that the demonetization was never intended to hit at the black economy, but only the limited portion, that is the black cash, if I may say so. Do you think, sir, we will be able to, attain that objective where we can cleanse this black cash from the system? So is it possible?
See, the government's aim was to tackle the black economy. That's what the Prime Minister stated in the beginning, apart from the other two things, which are very small.
Terrorist
financing and counterfeit currency, which were really small. So this is the main aim, actually. So the question is, what is black economy? Black economy consists of the black wealth and the annual black income generation that takes place in the economy. Now, this move does not check the black income generation, because people have different ways of generating black income. I could be a teacher and doing tuition, not declare my income. I could be a businessman doing under-invoicing and over-invoicing. That would not get stopped as a result of all this. So black income generation would continue. Now, of the black wealth, black cash is only 1%, And the reports are that people have recycled the black cash that they had, roughly about 3 lakh crores in my estimation out of the 15.44 lakh crore, that has gone recycled, whether through Jan Dhan account Yojana, through the banks, etc. And the government will not be able to check that, because the government is able to audit only 5 lakh accounts every year out of the 52 million that are where some data comes in through either TDS or through the filing of returns. Now, if you want to audit 20 crore accounts, it's an impossible.
So finding a needle in the stack of hay.
Finding a needle in a haystack. So therefore, even if the people have deposited 50,000, 75,000, 1 lakh rupees below the 2.5 lakh limit, and the government will not be able to do it. So if you look at 3 lakh crores, which is the black cash, Divided between 4 crore people who generate substantial black income, it comes to 75,000 rupees per person, which is way below the thing. Which does not mean that some people may not have 20 crore, but if some people have 20 crore, most people have 20,000, 30,000. So in other words, the black cash that may be taxed may be only 10% of the total black cash of 3 lakh crores. So, and the government, today's data from the Indian Express says 14.5 lakh crores come back. But now NRIs returning, they'll be bringing money back. Money that was in Nepal, that was in Bangladesh and in Bhutan, etc., that will be coming back. So my own suspicion is that maybe 30-40,000 crores may not come back, but otherwise most of the 15.44 lakh crores would come back.
So, I mean, a lot of has been talked about the impact of the demonetization on the informal sector. So, I mean, some economists are also of the view that the economy is already headed towards recession. So, has government acknowledged the impact demonetization is having on the informal sector, and what are the steps it's planning to take to mitigate this loss?
Actually, we have to understand that the objective of demonetization for corruption and black money should be seen in the larger perspective. Demonetization alone was not the process to curb corruption or black money. It is part of the larger process that the government took from the initial stage in when it took to power in 2014 with the establishment of SIT, then income disclosure scheme for declaration of foreign illegal assets, then Benami property, renegotiating OECD G20 treaties and Cyprus, Mauritius, Singapore treaties, bilateral tax information. That was this all together shows the government intention and the process by which the government wanted to curb corruption and black money, and demonetization is part of it. The second important aspect that you have raised is very important. What will be the effect of informal, what will be its impact on the informal economy? That's very important, and there has been an impact on informal economy. There is no doubt on it. Our informal economy was depending on cash currency, and with the squeeze in the currency liquidity, that they have seen some effort, but I think that's a short term. By remonetization, the government will able to tackle the liquidity crunch in the informal sector, and they will again regain. But the important factor is we have to identify, and we should understand the government knows that lot of informal economy was because of several other laws, like the labor laws, like registration with ESI, like registration with Provident Fund, and there were so many ease of doing business, etc. Registration for the unorganized, license Raj, etc. They are creating a lot of problem in the informal economy, and it was not alone that black currency, liquid currency was the only means of effect on the informal economy. The government is well knows this thing, and it will tackle those things because our focus is more on ease of doing business. So the informal sector at present, which shows a lot of worry in the short term, that because of only demonetization we have been able, we have taken the hit. We do not agree with it.
So you're saying that once it is remonetized, it will. So not only, sir, I would ask you not only focus on the informal sector, but on the economy as a whole.
Yeah. So you see, what happens is that informal sector being small, and informal sector is not just about government regulation. It's a definitional question. Formal sector is defined as those units which are to be registered compulsorily because they have 10 employment plus power, or 20 employment without power and more. So that's a technical definition. Now, why is the informal sector so large that 94% of the employment is in the organized sector and 45% the output? That is because you see in the formal and the organized sector, technology that is being used is not creating jobs. So this is a residual sector. And this residual sector will continue whether government regulations change or not. Second point is that they depend on cash because they are rather small. So, somebody having 2 people employed, 4 people employed, cottage sector where lifafas are made by women, papad and so on and so forth are made. Now, they depend on cash because they can't use really banking channels or formal channels, etc., etc. So that will continue. Now, when you squeeze cash, they are the first to hit because they can't pay wages and they don't have working capital. So informal sector or the unorganized sector has been very badly hit, and the reports are that maybe it's down by 40 to 50% as the today's report from the Manufacturers Association has come. Now that's a very big hit, and that will immediately impact the organized sector because these people also buy from the organized sector. So organized sector demand has come down as a result of the informal sector.
So you're saying it's a domino effect.
It's a domino effect. Second is that even those people, well-off people like us, facing cash crunch in the banks, we have postponed our demand. So what's called discretionary demand, that has been postponed. So if you wanted to buy a mobile phone, you'll say, okay, I can buy it 5 months later. I continue with my old mobile phone. So as has happened for the first time in the last 25 years, luxury car sales have dropped. These luxury cars of 40 lakh, 1 crore, 5 crore, they are not bought by small people. These people have no shortage of bank balances, etc. So why is that decline? Because there's huge uncertainty. When uncertainty takes over and the demand for organized sector has declined, then profitability is declining there. And therefore, investment is affected. Already capacity utilization in the organized sector of industry was 75%, and that's dropping to 40 to 50% as per the reports. If the capacity utilization is dropped as far as that, investment has ceased, and that's why CMI and others are reporting that investments have dropped very sharply. Now, if investments decline, then that's a long-term implication. Even when you restore currency, that doesn't come back. Okay, so neither the organized sector nor the unorganized sector will get revived simply because of that, because people are now uncertain, so they're holding currency. They're holding it rather than spending it, rather than investing with it. So there's a long-term effect, and therefore we are entering a recessionary phase. This is also impacting our banking system, because in the banking system, when the profitability of businesses and of agriculture is declined, loan repayment slows down. And therefore, now the budget making may also become a big problem, because on what basis do we plan for the budget if we don't understand what's... So the Statistical Commission chairperson, he has said that we cannot predict. Now he is to provide the data on the growth. And if he cannot provide the data on growth with demonetization effect, then how would the budget be planned? Because budget planning requires knowledge of what's happening to GDP.
True.
So a lot of problems are coming.
So this brings us to a very important question. How much, time we expect before the economy is sufficiently remonetized? Asking this is a question, every single common man has this worry and concern. So when can we expect the remonetization to be? Because after 2 months only, we have been able to remonetize to the extent of 50%. So is it going to take another 7-8 months before the normalcy is restored?
No,
at least in terms of availability of cash.
Because remonetization will take place by the time, there is a only question that how much time it will take. It will be done. But before I take that question, I would like to answer some of the issues that Professor Arun Kumar has said. The important thing, there is one fallacy which I think in the economist thinking of people are doing is that if they say the slowdown in the economy or recession, if it is caused, then it is because of only less cash in the economy or due to currency's liquidity in the system. So that itself, I think that problem will be solved by the liquidity remonetization. It may take 15 days or 1 month, that's different question, but there will be sufficient cash in the economy to tackle that issue. Other point, larger issues that people are raising, that demand recession is there, that will cause a big recession in economy. So there is a fallacy in this argument, but that means that they are saying that the black money was creating an economic development in the country. If you say that, otherwise there will be sufficient cash, there is no restriction on transactions, etc. For those people who are not having conversant with the digital economy, they can go for the cash, there will be sufficient cash. But for other people who want to go to the formal economy, transfer to the from informal to the formal economy, there is no restriction. Banks are available, bank correspondents are available. There are so many new digital economy applications are there. There is no restriction on transactions on going through bank accounts. The GST will be implemented. It was required that the transactions move through the banking sector, then only the true effect or benefit of the GST with regard to credit, etc. So what we have to decide in the economy of the country is, was the black money or corruption the bigger problem, or that was fueling the economy? I think that basic debate is lacking in their argument, whoever said this. One more important thing is the online transaction, cost of online transaction to the economy is drastically reduced. There is a data that I am on the Bank of Baroda board. We had done one analysis. If a person physically goes to a banking branch and does a transaction physically, the cost to the bank is 80 rupees per transaction. The same transaction, if it is done through mobile and online banking, it is less than 1 rupee. Every day we have a 5 crore transactions through banking sector, and if that is reduced, the physical transaction, that is reduced, a lot of cost saving for the
I got you. You want to counter that?
So yeah, I want to say, you see, the problem begins with liquidity and then translates into a demand shortage and therefore translates into a decline in the production. And once that happens and investment drops, so it becomes irreversible. So even if you restore currency, which you will do eventually, that problem will not go.
It's not only the connection between
so it's not just the circulation alone. So we have to worry about the fact that already, the CMI report that investments have dropped sharply. The financial sector saying we are only looking at it month by month. And if you look at month by month, you don't do investment, because investment is a long-term commitment that you make. And if you have capacity utilization falling to almost 50%, then you're not going to be doing investment. Investment as it is was slowing down. Credit offtake had slowed down very dramatically even before the announcement, and credit offtake now has fallen further because the banks have been so busy only accepting cash and giving out cash that they've had no time. So my mother, who's 89 years old, went to make fixed deposit, because she had some money lying, and the bank said, we don't have time for that. Then she asked, can I do internet banking? They said, you come after 2 months, then we'll do internet banking. So an 89-year-old woman who was trying to put her money into some fixed, she can't do it. So this is what's going to happen. Second is, suppose banks are flush with funds. Why? Because people have had to deposit it. Now people are hoarding money, so more will be withdrawn. So banks will be short of funds. In fact, very soon as enough liquidity is available, people will be withdrawing. Already people are holding on. So it's not that the banks will be flush with funds which they can loan out. Secondly, if the demand is not there, then banks can't lend. And in fact, their costs have risen while their incomes have fallen. So that's why the banking crisis is going to come. Third point is that suppose we say that banks are flush with funds and they can cut interest rate. Now, cutting an interest rate does not boost demand. Why? Because if you see the 2007-8 crisis, after that USA, Japan and Eurozone had zero interest rate. Japan had negative interest rate and investment was not reviving because capacity utilization is low. So in India also today capacity utilization is low. Even if you cut the interest rate by 2 or 3 percentage
already
point,
because I think 75%.
Yes, but suppose I'm saying even if you cut it by 2 to 3%, even then demand will not revive. And many of the steps that Gopal is suggesting could be done independent of demonetization. You didn't have to go for demonetization to go towards less cash economy.
Or the
you didn't have to do for digital economy, etc., or less cash economy. Yes, you go as far as possible towards less cash economy. There's no doubt. But where is the infrastructure? The infrastructure.
But maybe, sir, we also need to factor in that inert, the behavior pattern of the Indians. We don't change our behavior pattern unless there is a push from behind.
No, there could be that factor, but they could also reverse, because recently I was in the US there, and there you've had this credit card, debit card, etc. for 50 years, and still people carry a lot of currency. In Japan, the currency ratio is much higher than in India also. So there are different kinds of habits that different economies have. So it's not the case that, if you push people, then they'll simply do that. And now that their faith in banking is reduced, because their own money, they're not able to withdraw. So they are going to hold more cash, I think, than earlier. And that's why you see government may have to print more than 15.44 lakh crores of currency. And that's why this currency shortage could last for at least 8, 10, 12 months. So now, you can try to move people.
Let's take up, sir, another important aspect. The impression of the Reserve Bank of India as an institution. Somewhere it has received a beating during this entire event of demonetization. Yes. Now we have come to know that the RBI governor has to appear before the Public Account Committee later this month. So, do you think, it has somewhere diluted the powers of the RBI as an institution, and does it worry you as an economist?
Yes, you see, RBI is a relatively autonomous institution, not a completely autonomous institution. Monetary policy is in the anvil of the RBI, fiscal policy in the anvil of the government. And monetary fiscal policies have to go together.
Because I am saying that because one of the questions...
But what has not happened is this close coordination. In fact, if it's a dictate, because monetary policy and money supply has to be controlled by the RBI. But if there's a dictate that you have to do demonetization, and without preparation, you did not have enough currency already printed, and you also printed wrong size of the currency, so ATMs had to be recalibrated, etc. So I think RBI's role was minimal in all this. Now that is where the problem is, because RBI should have been central in this demonetization move. And the point, as I said, was that demonetization does not attack the black economy, which was the original aim. So if you have to move towards less cash economy, there also RBI's role should be very central.
So, I mean, coming to the issue of rupees 2000 denomination notes, as we understand the economic rationale behind that to quickly remonetize the economy and the obviously logistic problems which would have arisen had we gone for a lower denomination. But do you think this is just a stopgap arrangement and the 2000 rupees note would also be withdrawn in due course of time?
No, I don't think there is a need of withdrawal of 2000 note. It's in circulation because ultimately the government's objective or the larger viewpoint on the government is that we should move towards less cash economy, and digital economy or banking transactions is more tax compliant. Ultimately, if you analyze demonetization, there are two aspects. One is a short-term impact and there is a long-term impact of demonetization. If you say on the long term, so the debate has to segregate. If you are talking of demonetization in the effect of the demonetization in the longer perspective, when we talk of longer perspective, there are so many issues. We can say that in the long run, they will benefit the economy. Then if you give the arguments of its short-term impact, so then there is no reconciliation. So ultimately we have to be fair on the debate whether we are talking on short-term impact of demonetization on the economy. We concede many of the things which the many people, critics of the demonetization, are saying. But when you talk of long-term impact of demonetization on economy, we are very confident that it will help the economy, it will create more resources to the government, it will create transparency, it will create a better image of India in the international
scenario. So we are completely running out of time,
one more point I want to tell is that you see there has been talk of that people have some faith in the government or institutions may be reduced by this. I don't agree with this, because you see there was several pains to the common man over this 50-55 days, and there was no resentment, strong resentment from the common man. That shows they have strong faith in the government and its intention to fight corruption, to curb black money, to bring transparency in the economy, to create economic ecosystem which will give conducive opportunities to all segments of the society.
So that's true, sir, because the common man has bought the discourse of the government that the rich will suffer, and that's why they have willingly, they have suffered the pain without any uprising. But they are, let's hope that gain finally reaches that Aam Aadmi. As we can see, the debate of monetization can actually be summarized in between the long term and short term, or maybe I'll take the benefit, help of two English adage that a means is as important as the end, versus all well that ends well. Some are saying that the objective of demonetization is noble, but the means is so dangerous that it will nullify the very basic objective. On the other hand, some are of the opinion that long-term impact, the long-term effect will be better and the short-term pain will wither away. Let's hope that the demonetization results in democratization of wealth and the common man is not left betrayed again, even after having faced so much of pain. Thank you for watching.